Hey folks, how's everybody doing? Today we're going to talk about the Jupiter 9 portrait lens. This is an interesting lens. I bought some years ago and I finally started using it over the past year. And it was it was an interesting effort to try to use this thing because my original plan was to use it on a Canon rangefinder, which are considerably more reliable and better built than the Soviet rangefinders. But unfortunately, in M39 mount, there is a focus compatibility issue between Soviet and Japanese M39 rangefinder cameras. It's a slight incompatibility having to do with the optical registration, and it really only manifests when you're shooting this lens and perhaps the Jupiter 3 at close distance, wide open aperture for a portrait. But I did mount this thing on the Canon P on this camera right here, and I shot a model who was like say a waist up shot, and her shoulders were at a slight angle, and the point of focus was the closest eye, and the actual point of focus, I mean the camera's rangefinder was focused upon the model's closest eye, but the lens was focused, I'd say, about 10 centimeters behind her on her left shoulder. So so you can't use these things with Japanese rangefinders. It's kind of a bummer. But other than that, well, just keep the focus compatibility in mind if you are in the market for one of these. So let's talk about the Jupiter 9. What is it? What are the specs? What are the basics? It is a Jupiter 9 85mm f2 lens. It is a copy of the pre-war Zeiss sonar. 7 elements in 3 groups, optical formula. 15 aperture blades. I put a question mark there because I'm not sure if that is consistent across all versions. Like many Soviet lenses, the Jupiter 9 was produced for a very long time in a variety of versions, in a variety of mounts. So I don't know that the 15 aperture blades is consistent across all versions. So just make a note of that. 49mm filter size. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you collect old rangefinder lenses, it kind of is. Because a lot of the old rangefinder lenses back in the 1950s, the filter sizes were non-standardized. And if you can find a really, really nice rangefinder lens like this, that has that has more of a standardized filter size, like 49mm, which was very common to a lot of Pentax lenses came in 49mm, a lot of Minolta lenses, I believe Olympus. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. It offers a clickless aperture, so it's got, again, this is real old school, so there's no click stops to the aperture. And also you can notice that there's a huge difference between the distance between, say, f2 and f2.8 here versus, say, f16 and f22, and that's just that's a fairly common feature you see on some of the real older lenses, where the distance between the aperture markings closes up as you stop the lens down, and because it's just a simpler mechanism. And it's clickless, I mentioned that, very good. Let's see, minimum focusing distance, 1.15 meters, at least on this one. Here we go, 1.15 meters right there. Again, I put a question mark behind that because I'm not sure if that is consistent across all versions. Likewise, I do not know if all versions of the Jupiter 9 feature clickless aperture. This one does. This is a polished aluminum. So an early version, M39 mount Jupiter 9, which does have clickless aperture. Again, I don't know if that's consistent across all versions. Probably is, but no promises there. Minimum focusing distance, talked about that. Mounts. This lens was made in a variety of mounts. So this is the M39, or LTM, like a thread mount, which is made for rangefinders, and that mount was very popular. A lot of cameras, a lot of rangefinder cameras were made in that mount in the 1950s, in both Japan and Germany, and the Soviet Union. Contax Kiev mount was another popular one. The Kiev was the Soviet copy of the pre-war Contax. This lens was also made in the M42 mount, also known as the Universal Thread mount, also known as Pentax Practica screw mount. This is probably the most affordable version, probably the most least expensive and commonly available, if I had to guess. So if you're adapting to mirrorless, it would probably make the most sense to look for the M42 version. There's also an M39 Zenit version floating around out there. That is to say, the very early Zenit SLRs took a lens with the rear size, that is the diameter across here is 39 millimeters, but the optical registration is the same as on an M42 mount camera. So if you pick up one of those and you try to put it on your M39 rangefinder, it will not focus at all, period. But you can adapt it to your M42 mount SLR with the use of an adapter ring. And I believe you can get those adapter rings at fedka.com in New York. I don't know where else you can get them, but it's not a particularly common version, but they do pop up from time to time, and people get confused because it's got this, physically will screw onto an M39 rangefinder, but it won't focus, and that can drive a lot of people nuts. So I've got a set of images that I shot with this lens up on Flickr. I've collected them in an album. I will put the link down below. And I'm quite impressed with it. The sharpness is excellent. The bokeh is just fantastic. In terms of color fidelity, I've got a handful of shots up there I took with Color Plus 200, which is probably not the best film to use for gauging color fidelity. But again, I take the position that if color fidelity is what you're looking for, then you probably shouldn't be shopping for 1950s era rangefinder lenses. You're probably better served by 1960s and 1970s, 1980s era SLR lenses, which were multi-coated as opposed to this. Although take a look at the coating on this thing. It's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of glass. It really is. How well that multi-coating is, I don't know. This version is, let's see here, focal length is marked in centimeters, indicating it's a fairly early version, and the serial number suggests that it was made in 1959. So this is probably one of the more desirable versions when you're collecting Soviet gear. The common wisdom is that the stuff made in the late 60s, or excuse me, the late 50s and early 60s is the highest build quality. That was like the Sputnik Yuri Gagarin era when the Soviets were confident in their manufacturing and technical capabilities, and I think that rubbed off on the products that were produced at the time as well, as opposed to the later era by the 1970s when the sort of malaise had set in, and it was becoming grindingly obvious to everyone that the Soviet system just wasn't working. My experience with this lens is primarily on the Zorky rangefinder, and I have got very good results with with this rangefinder and that lens. No problem focusing. The focus is perfectly accurate. Although you do have to use the Zorky does not, nor do any of the Soviet rangefinders, to my knowledge, have frame markings or viewfinder angles of view other than 50 millimeters. So you got to use one of these. Yeah. What I have here is a turret style rangefinder viewfinder, and this thing is really well built. There's nothing to sneeze at. This is a nice, well built piece of kit right here. And it fits right on top of the Zorky, like so, and kaboom, just slides right on there. And what you do is you turn this to, so that's 85 millimeters right there, and you've got sort of rudimentary parallax correction on the side right there, where you can, where you have to sort of turn this. You've got a marking for 2 meters and a marking for 1 meter. This is the setup that I used when taking the photographs that you'll see on the Flickr album, and the framing turned out okay. I just eyeballed the parallax using this, and I got pretty decent results. So it looks it looks a little dodgy and unreliable, but actually it worked out okay. In theory, you should be able to use any viewfinder adapter, that is, any accessory viewfinder rather. For example, here's a Canon 85mm viewfinder made for Canon rangefinders of that era. Although the lens has an optical registration, a very slight optical registration compatibility issue, there's no reason that there should be a compatibility issue for the cold shoe attachment, although when I put this on here, it doesn't quite slide in particularly comfortably, and that's about as far as it goes, and then it hits a little resistance, and I'm just not going to force it because I don't need to, why force the issue? But in theory, you should be able to use any manufacturer's viewfinder for your Soviet rangefinder. There are plenty of people who say that the Jupiter 9 is one of your most affordable, least expensive, classic rangefinder portrait lenses. Maybe. That may be true, but I think your Canon Serenar you might be able to find one of these for a similar price, if not same price, if not lower. I think if you're budget shopping for an M39 portrait lens, the Serenar, well, then again, these two really aren't competitors because you can't use them on the same cameras because of the focus compatibility issue. If this wouldn't focus properly on the Canon P, then why would I think this would focus properly on the Zorky? They're only competitors if you're adapting to mirrorless. Anyway, I did find a nice review online from some gentleman I hadn't heard of previously, but this fellow posted a really nice review of an M39, a Jupiter 9. With charts and sample images and pixel-peeping blow-up of corner sharpness and coma, and really technical. And it looked like this fellow knew what he was talking about, and so I'm going to link to that down below. And so have a look at that if you're more interested in the technical aspects of the lens, and if you're more of a pixel peeper, then I'll link to that fellow. You can also take a look at the Flickr album that I've got as well, if you want to peep some more pixels and take a look at your corner sharpness and your bokeh and all that sort of thing. Although all of my photographs were shot on film, whereas the review, the blog post review I'm going to post to down below, the gentleman was using a Sony Alpha. It's a Sony something. It was a Sony mirrorless. I'm not sure which one, but he was using a Sony mirrorless. Maybe not an Alpha. I'm not sure. Anyway, so that's about all I've got on the Jupiter 9. It is it's got a great look. It's got a nice classic look and feel to it. I'm very happy with this lens. It produced wonderful results for me. It is not that expensive. Although in all the mounts, M39 is probably going to be your priciest. Yuri at Fedka.com in New York sells these for $269 in excellent condition. At least that's what he's advertising as of today, right now. That's in the M39 mount. I think you can find them for cheaper in M42 in the SLR mount. So again, if you're adapting to mirrorless, if that's your goal, then I would look for the M42 version personally. I think the M39 is probably the pricier. And the M42 version should, in theory, have a more modern coating. Although, look at that. Look at the beautiful color on that coating. This lens is just a work of art. This is why I love collecting these things. These are just beautiful, beautiful objects. They really are. It's just industrial artwork, I think. Okay, that's what I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do like and subscribe. Check out the links below. And please, you can see all of my videos ad-free, commercial-free on the Odyssey network, or Odyssey platform, rather. I'm starting to back up all my videos onto Odyssey because I think small hobby creators need a backup nowadays. I'm not sure for how much longer the Silicon Valley big tech is going to be interested in, small hobby folks like me with, a few thousand views here and there. So I'm backing up onto an alternate platform, and I've chosen Odyssey. So see the link down below for that. You can see all of my content on that platform ad-free. It's a little glitchy. If you create an account, it's less glitchy, but again, it's all tech and it's up and coming, but it is gaining in popularity, and it's not always glitchy. Like sometimes it just depends on the time of day. So check that out. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.